Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Fire Break with Steve Wolf.
Welcome back to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing some pretty cool, innovative stuff for wildfire control, management, suppression, and containment. I got it all out in one breath. How do you like that? Today, I've got with us live from Canada, Paul Prevost, who, if you check him out on LinkedIn, you wouldn't understand why it didn't say Dr. Paul Prevost or Dr. Prevost, because Paul has got so much experience in emergency management and fire management, fire leadership. Boy, I want to take everything in your brain and condense it down on a chip, and then it could solve all the problems of fire.
Oh, I don't know.
Whoa, I don't know.
That's right.
Welcome. How are you, Paul?
Oh, well. Yes, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So what are you working on these days?
Well, I teach for a local polytechnic or technical school. I teach emergency management. I've been doing that since 2019. So I have one course that I'm doing. I'm doing exercise design or exercises in emergency management this semester. And I also teach at a fire school locally. I was there actually yesterday at Vermilion Lakeland Fire College, and I was pump operating they had a whole bunch of industrial crews there fighting fire on the liquid and gaseous propane props. And so I was helping with that. And I also have my podcast, of course, which I do, which keeps me quite busy, called Emergency Traffic. And we review line of duty death reports and talk about those with my cousin, who's smarter than me, and some other firefighters that I have made acquaintances over the years. And we do that a couple times a month. So that all keeps me busy.
So having reviewed many, line of duty death after action reports, what do you see as commonalities? What are some of the things? What are some of the takeaways that firefighters could benefit from to avoid becoming the name in one of your reports?
Yeah, the takeaways, unfortunately, are very repetitive. We see a lot of the same takeaways, a lot of it, and we study more the multiple fatalities because it's not just a rare occurrence. Then it's like something went wrong, obviously, if several firefighters were killed at an incident. And so, of course, the not doing a 360, not following, incident management or ICS, incident command system protocols in really span of control is one of the biggest ones, where the incident commander gets oversaturated, and then they can't delegate tasks, and you get freelancing and you lose track of people. And it happens. It doesn't matter where it is. We've done line of duty death reports in the States, in Canada, in the UK, and in Germany. And they often have a common theme in that they lose accountability where the people are because the incident commander gets overwhelmed. The other common one, of course, is short staffing. We see so many. We're doing the Georgia one right now. It's going to be an episode this month where the battalion chief was killed by an exploding door on a intermodal container. But I mean, they had 2 firefighters in a truck, the battalion chief, and 2 other chief officers showed up to the call. Nowhere near 1720, and actually it was a 1710 department because they had enough staffing and their composition was that it would fall into NFPA 1710. And so the fire chief helped pull the line and get them set up and extend the line and get some water on the fire. Went around to investigate the trailer, and the trailer blew up because it was a C-can, commonly known as intermodal container. And many firefighters don't know that those become pressure vessels because they don't have much for venting. You saw all those ones that fell off a ship in San Diego or something this week, and they float. Yep. Why do they float? Well, because there's no venting. They just have small little vents. Well,
not because they're witches, huh?
Right. Any time there's a little bit of pressure inside from a fire, they heat it up. Then they can blow up like a pressure vessel. There was another similar fire. This happened in 2024 in Georgia, in Enderby, British Columbia, Canada, in 2013. There was another intermodal container that was beside a building that was on fire. It wasn't even on fire. They were standing on the container fighting the building fire. And about an hour after the fire, the doors blew off the container because there was some combustibles inside, and it had built to the right atmosphere and blew up and killed the fire captain. So yeah, so a lot of the same stuff: staffing, training, not following SOPs, incident command. Those are all common themes, and we've seen them. We have that. What's the fellow's Mayday report? He passed away now. He used to do a big study of Maydays in North America. I want to say Don Henry, but I don't think that's right. He came up with the same thing. We've done a few podcast episodes of the trends in firefighter line of duty deaths, and it's sometimes the same, right?
Yeah. And now we're seeing, of course, more non-line of duty, but duty-related deaths in cancers and in suicides.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Cancers, of course. Some people, in fact, you did an episode, I think, with Frank Lieb. I was listening to it on my way up to the fire college the other day. And the thing about cancer, the biggest lesson there is how you doff your gear, right? And so many larger departments have implemented policies to try to doff your gear online or on air. But it's difficult to follow, especially if you have minimum staffing. You just don't have the resources to decontaminate your gear right away, bag it, and go back to the station, because what if there's another call or you need more people? And so, but we need to work on that, because the environment we're working in is full of cancer-causing agents, and we need to get more religious. And I was a chief. I was the worst for, not wearing my pack all the time and all that kind of stuff. So far, I've been fortunate, but yeah, cancer and suicide is terrible. We get every month, there's another person that, you hear about, and how do we stop that? We have to talk about our problems, right? It's happened to all of us.
Yeah. Some of the recent reports I'm reading on firefighter cancers are related to the shift work, that breaking your body's circadian rhythm exposes you to much higher risk of tumor development. And this is in the absence of carcinogens. This is simply a circadian rhythm issue.
Right, doing shift work and stuff, absolutely. And which shift is the best? I mean, the debate goes on as to, in Canada, a lot of it's are 10 and 14s, 2 days on, 2 days off, change shifts, etc. Although we see a lot in Western Canada going to 24-hour shifts. Something we don't see much in Canada is you see it down in California on the West Coast. You see the 48 and 72-hour shifts, which we don't typically see here. But yeah, what effect does that have on the body is a good question. I was a part-time on-call firefighter for most of my career. Just the last 10 years, I worked full-time as a chief officer. So me, it was more, you get up in the middle of the night, go to the call, right?
Right.
Rather, so you were sleeping in your bed, but then you got called out all the time. So.
Yeah. So what's happening in Canada to address that? And anything more than anything anywhere else? Are there?
Not really. The occupational health and safety groups, the labor boards have they really weren't for the 24-hour shifts. They were worried that was going to be too long a period, but firefighters have been able to push it through. I think Calgary, which is a large metropolitan department, I think they're on 24s now. Edmonton, which is close to us as well, they're not. They're doing 10s and 14s. So I don't know, maybe some research, that'd be about it, that's going on with it.
There's a lot of research. There's a whole podcast.
Yes, the data-driven, right?
Yeah, there's a whole podcast exclusively dedicated to the impacts of shift work for firefighters.
Yeah.
We've got an episode in the can on that.
Oh, excellent.
Tell me about wildfires. I've started referring to Canada affectionately as the country that can't keep its smoke to itself.
We have a lot of trees up here.
They sure do.
Canada,
and not a lot of firefighters, right?
Well, yeah, so many uninhabited areas or sparsely inhabited areas, and lots of trees. I mean, it's the boreal forest. And most of Canada lives in the southern 200-300 miles near the U.S. border, and then the rest of it is a lot of bush. And so when it gets going, And of course, we prevented fires forever. We put them out quickly, fires out within the first 48 hours or whatever. So then the trees,
10 a.m.
the forests get overgrown, and then they burn more violently and hotter, and they're harder to suppress or control because of that. So unfortunately, we've been generating a lot of wildfire smoke, which probably isn't new, except the fires are more extreme than they used to be because of all those policies in the past. And then we go and build infrastructure, houses, plants, whatever, in the middle of the forest, and no one wants to cut the trees down beside their house, and then the house burns down. So, it's a problem, and it's not going to go away. The whole Jasper wildfire in the park, Jasper had been overrun recently. Of course, they were subject to the old forest growth because of suppressing all the fires. And then we had a mountain pine beetle infestation about 15, 20 years ago, that in British Columbia and Jasper, a lot of the parks, the mountain pine beetle killed lots of spruce trees or evergreen trees. And therefore, these trees were still standing and in the forest. Now, in some areas, they harvested the standing lumber to use it to make softwood lumber and stuff like that, or whatever they could. But of course, in Jasper in the park, they didn't. It was a big controversy. Should they go harvest the lumber? And Parks Canada was like, well, we're not sure we want to harvest it. And so it was still standing. And Parks Canada wanted to do some more burns and stuff like that. But that's Molly. I'm sorry.
That's right.
That's one of my dogs. Sorry. There's a guy walking around outside. The Parks
dog's doing his job.
Yeah, they're putting fiber optic in the neighborhood, and so they're doing line locating and stuff like that. Anyway, Parks Canada was hesitant to do proactive burns because of the smoke, and therefore that didn't happen. Anyway, it got on fire.
You got your smoke anyway, right?
Yeah, it burned anyway, and of course they lost a third of the town to the wildfire, which is a whole other subject to get down a rabbit hole on. So only one report's out so far on that one. So I like to read the after action.
What are your thoughts about it?
I think that there was some lack of coordination. Jasper Townsite had done lots of preparation, evacuation planning, all that kind of stuff, but there was some discrepancies between Parks Canada and Jasper and what Parks Canada did or didn't do or told Jasper. And then so the decisions and what to do immediately in the emergent time, the first few days, they didn't have enough firefighters there, in my opinion, municipal firefighters to protect the town. Alberta doesn't have a California, Oregon style, or what do you call them, MAC, Mutual Aid Compact, doesn't exist here. The Fire Commissioner's Office simply puts out an email to all the fire chiefs through the Fire Chiefs Association. Hey, can anybody
email? Wow, once a week in a newsletter.
Well, right? can someone send help? Please send help. And it's not organized like California, where within 3 hours you got 1,000 firefighters coming. I was down in San Diego in 2008 when they had the fires there, and I was in awe at the response. And I've been telling our emergency managers here we need to emulate that to a certain extent and have pre-arranged agreements so that when you call, it's immediate and it's quick. Look at Waldo Canyon, like I'm sure you're in Colorado, Waldo Canyon, Marshall Fire. What were the successes of those fires? The successes were that they had incident management teams on site within a few hours, and they had 60, 80 fire engines with crews on site within 2 hours. And they successfully fought the fire. Yes, people died. Yes, the infrastructure was impacted, but they were somewhat successful. In Alberta or Western Canada, we don't have that. We're trying. The government here in Alberta just funded, I think, 4 more, they call them sprinkler protection units and crews with staffing to be ready to go to communities when there's a wildfire impinging. Although the bad ones usually don't have a lot of time. You got to have engines on site within a few hours, and we're not good at that here in Canada yet.
So is it really as much of an administrative challenge as it is a physical challenge?
The municipalities are independent entities. They have no obligation to the province or to others. They usually have mutual aid agreements within their own area. But when it comes to somewhere 4 hours away, there's no agreement in place. And so to me, that needs to be planned out, like California OES or Oregon, where OES would give the community a fire truck here you go, it's yours, use it. But when we call, we want you to send it and more. That's not here. It doesn't exist in Western Canada.
So what would it take to get that implemented?
A lot of lobbying and horsepower at the government level to try to get some sort of a mutual aid compact together. Although I hear that the feds have stopped the mutual aid compact funding in the States last week. Stephen Kerr, he's an emergency manager that has a podcast as well, and I think I read it on his thing, is that the funding for the mutual aid compacts may be in question. You know that?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, apparently.
But look how unsurprised I look.
yeah, exactly. Right. Well, no, because the MACs were instrumental in Hurricane Katrina, of course, which we just had the anniversary of, 24 years ago or something like that, or 20 years ago. And then we had the California wildfires. I mean, it was amazing. I listened to the Fire Command radio traffic for days during the Palisades fire because it was on Broadcastify, and they did a great job. I'm an ICS instructor, so I was eating that up because they did such a great job of command, and they had like thousands and thousands of firefighter working that fire that came from all over the place. They came from Oregon and from my nephew in Wyoming. His crews were deployed to California, right? So that's amazing. We don't see that in Canada on the municipal side. We see it on the wildfire side, which is all provincially operated. Like wildfire fighting is a provincial jurisdiction. But as far as structural, municipal, we don't see that. They'll go help once they're asked and if they can, but it's not immediate. Jasper, the wildfire started on Sunday, I believe, and I was teaching at the fire school actually that week, and they didn't call out all the other fire departments till Wednesday afternoon to come help. Wow. And someone who was there on Tuesday said he got there as a municipal, like a local municipal mutual aid agency, and he asked, like, where's all the firefighters? And they told him, well, this is it. As far as municipal firefighters.
Yeah.
So,
wow. And do they have full-time wildland firefighters?
The park does, and the province does. But the provincial wildland firefighters don't do municipal because it's a conflagration. Once it starts in the town, it's really a conflagration. And the wildland guys aren't equipped for that, right? They got little portable pumps and little hoses. Right. And just coveralls or single layer wildland gear, and it gets in between the houses. It's too hot and it's too violent. You need engines like in Waldo Canyon or Marshall, where you've got SCBA and 1,000 gallons a minute of pump and a tank, and you can grab a hydrant and try to put some houses out.
Right. Yeah. It's a whole different beast. But as we're seeing this, this WUI growing and WUI fires growing, that line is blurring more.
Yes.
And I think we're going to see the need for more cross training.
I hope so. Many states will put cross-skilled people within the response teams and the task forces and strike teams. Here, we're a little weak on that so far. We don't typically put the wildland guys in with the municipal guys on the same team. And so I think that's something we need to go towards and prepare for more. And then, of course, like California's trying to do now and many other areas. And what's the lady in Boulder that's been doing amazing work with, Firewise in communities and following the rules, the first 5 feet, the first 30 feet and stuff. But
probably Danielle McNutt.
Yes, Danielle McNutt. I follow her on LinkedIn and repost all her because she sounds like she's doing a great job there.
Yeah, she really is.
Trying to educate the people. I was there. I was a deputy fire chief in Clearwater County, which is in the Rocky Mountains, butts right up against Banff Park, and trying to tell people who just spent $500,000 on their beautiful little cabin in the woods that they need to cut some trees down and they need to thin it out and they need to get rid of the stuff near the house. And they don't take that well.
Yeah, it seems like education is not really the powerful tool that educators would like to think it is.
This perception of risk, I guess, really, you guys are going to protect me, right? You're the fire department.
Sure. And the police department will protect you too, right?
There you go. There was a recent article on one of the social feeds about trying to train, because not the firefighters are never enough, and more on this community emergency response team concept that we don't have in Canada, by the way, like the FEMA funded community emergency response teams.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Paul Falegi, he used to sell fire trucks with me years ago. He's on one down in the, I don't know, Dallas, Fort Worth, somewhere area, Saginaw, Texas. Anyway, we need that here because it's really your neighbors that are going to help you out when your house is on fire or your car's on fire or whatever.
Yeah, you need them to come bulldoze your neighbor's house so it doesn't light your house on fire.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd. I like to read the after action reports for the Lanahi reports or the Marshall Fire reports or all these different reports. And
Fort McMurray.
Yeah. The Canadian reports are typically fairly whitewashed. They typically get an accountant firm or something to do it, or a consulting firm that's not really. Now, I really love what Hawaii did, where they hired FSRI to do the report. Just like Waldo Canyon hired NISC to do the report, because they didn't pull any punches on those reports. I mean, if you read the Maui report, I think it's phase 2 report, it points out, I mean, yes, they had spare apparatus. They didn't staff up for the event. They had spare apparatus, but because of lack of station space, the spare apparatus was outside, stripped. So the firefighters coming in to help had to go grab supplies out of the back room to load the spare apparatus up to go fight the fire, right? They didn't have enough radios. It was all these things that they didn't do. That's how we kill firefighters. Lucky no firefighters got killed during that event. That was spectacular, really. But unfortunately, it happened. Yeah.
So presumably the goal of these reports isn't just so that you can have more fingers to point. It's so that you can do better next time and that other people can do better as a result of learning what they can from your mistakes, right?
Yeah. Well, our FEMA friend used to be the director. What's his name? The name slips me when we're talking. Craig Fugate. He says, lessons identified. They're not learned until behavior's changed. So the lessons are identified. Now, Hawaii they hired a fire marshal. They're trying to do some of the stuff that was identified in the report. So they're trying to learn those lessons. So hopefully, apparently the Maui Fire Department has been underfunded forever. And so maybe that'll change. And so try to identify Palisades. I teach exercise design. I told you I was teaching exercise design last semester when I taught it. A report came out from Paradise, California. Yeah. The report came out that they had done an evacuation exercise before. They were getting prepared. They knew this could happen, right? The public works people and the police people had admitted in the after action reviews, if you read the books and stuff, that by doing the exercise a couple of years before, they did the all lanes going one way, so the divided highways, and and so they had put roadblocks up and parked vehicles and stuff. And they admitted that because they'd done that before in the exercise, it made it go smoother in the actual event. Yes, still 100 people died and 18,000 structures burned, but they did say that the evacuation actually did go well because they'd prepared for it before. We have to get the mentality of everyone, from the public service also to the civilians, that we need to be prepared. We need to understand there is a risk to my home, my community, from flooding, tornadoes, power outages, whatever it is. We have to be better prepared. And so many people aren't well prepared for emergencies.
Yeah, and it's not just reversing the lane directions on the inbound lanes,
right?
But the need for fuel mitigation and evacuation route hardening.
Right. I mean, the Fort McMurray,
expensive and time consuming.
Fort McMurray wildfires. A big problem they had with the evacuation was it's far, right? Fort McMurray is fairly remote. It's an oil sands community, and so it's there because of the oil sands. But it's 3 hours from the nearest towns, and so people ran out of fuel that were trying to evacuate. So they had to go take fuel trucks and fuel cans to people's cars so they could get out. So you have to plan all.
No high-speed rail there, huh?
There's no high-speed rail. No.
So people ran out of gas.
Yep.
Trying to evacuate.
Right. Exactly. And of course,
made their car less likely to blow up, I guess.
I suppose. Yeah, but they're just trying to get out, right? And they're stuck in
Yeah, of
between
course.
now. They're out of the fire zone, but they're trying to get to the next community so they can go find a place to rest or sleep or park. And of
Yeah.
course, so all this planning has to go in ahead of time. So our emergency managers have their hands full. Alberta Emergency Management has done a lot of work towards legislating municipalities. Actually, new legislation just came out saying that they have to conduct evacuation exercises. They have to plan for it. They have to do, every year or they've increased the statutory responsibilities of municipalities to do risk assessments and to plan for emergencies. So they're trying, but
Right.
you get a municipality, it's the same in Colorado or here, you get a rural municipality of 5,000 or 10,000 people. They don't have the resources to plan it. It's on the corner of the desk. Who's the director of emergency management? Oh, it's the fire chief or the rec director or whatever, and it's on the corner of the desk. And so.
Well, yeah, and I know there are many interagency mass casualty drills or exercises, of the type that you likely coordinate and conceive.
Yeah.
But you rarely ever see the public involved in that, except maybe to read about it in the paper the next day.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who really need the training.
Right. Look at, basic first aid training or those kind of things. There's a recent report, what's Stop the Bleed? That's sort of training about, traumatic injuries. While in our modern society, the general public has forgotten how to deal with traumatic injuries because we don't see them on a daily basis. When you used to be on the farm in Oklahoma, you knew what to do. But now we're so protected in our societies from how to deal with emergencies that we've lost that skill. How do we spread that out again amongst everybody?
Yeah, maybe you bring it back into elementary school.
Great idea. Absolutely. Like CPR and everything else, right? And it should be basic skills.
CPR, AEDs, first aid.
Yeah.
Right. Evacuation.
Right.
Duck and cover from nuclear.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. The good old civil defense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were preparing for a risk that never materialized. Thank goodness.
Yes.
But at least they were going through preparation exercises.
I just discovered, I think that was the origin of the California Office of Emergency Services giving communities fire trucks, was from the old civil defense. I saw a picture because I'm a fire apparatus nerd. I sold fire trucks for 25 years. And there was a picture of all these trucks going to California that were supplied for civil defense. And that's kind of died off in so many areas, but some areas they're still doing it.
Well, it may come back.
It may.
We're seeing, I was going to say, we're seeing bigger military budgets. Well, every year we see bigger military budgets. but I think for the fire space on the technology side, that's really essential. You're never going to see probably either private enterprise or local municipal or state fire departments funding the type of R&D that's necessary to bring new technology to the fire space. But to the degree that fire might be considered a military risk, in that you can shut down an Air Force base with a match, we might see the military or the DoD, which is now being rebranded as the Department of War.
I heard that.
Right. So it's likely that the level of funding that's necessary to have real meaningful technological breakthroughs will come from the DoD perceiving fire as a threat.
Maybe. Like I was amazed. I've always been a bit of a student of emergency management since I took my first emergency management courses way back in the 80s. And then in the 2000s, about 2006 or 7, I was in Germany, in Karlsruhe. There's a fire truck plant there, Metz Aerials, and I was there to look at some products and stuff like that. And so while we're there, I'd never been to a German fire station, so we went to the fire station. And in behind the fire station, they had a whole emergency management building, and in the basement of the building, now this is all translation, so sometimes you get it wrong, but they had a whole warehouse of supplies. They had 2 full-time staff. That's all they did. And they maintained pumps and boots and generators and heaters and tents and everything for a civil emergency. So what I drew from that was Germany, the communities in Germany were much more prepared than we are in Canada for a civil emergency. Now, that might be from their history over the last 400 years, right? Whereas in Canada, United States, we don't take as a serious approach that it's worth putting the money into that stuff that you never will use. And I was amazed at how they had that preparation, and we don't see it here at all. Very little preparation like that. Anything that's old or been in storage for a while, it's like, we don't need that. Can't have. When I went to Canada used to have an emergency planning college near Ottawa and near the nation's capital in Iron Empire. They shut it down 20 years ago. Kind of like the fire college, National Fire College and Academy in the States. Anyway, and when we walked into the training and started, the first thing they said is, we have the Canada plan. Well, what's the Canada plan? It can't happen here, right? That's the Canada plan. Well, it can't happen here. What's the chances? And because Canada is such a vast country and area with such a sparse population, we kind of live that a little bit, right? It's like, it can't happen to me. What's the chances? So.
Well, the chances are low, but when it does, it's catastrophic.
Exactly.
And the chances are increasing.
Yeah. Look at Palisades. Did those people who lived in Palisades anticipate a wildfire conflagration?
I doubt it.
Yeah. They didn't think of it. But yet, if you and I, sort of educated in the field, look at the maps of Palisades and all the homes and the topography and the climate, we go like, hey, this could be a tinderbox if things got going. So, yeah.
And it was.
Unfortunately, unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And there was no way they could. And of course, then you get into the fire apparatus were out of service, or the water system was down because one of the reservoirs had been drained for maintenance, or you get these other little things that just enough to tip it over.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me about on the exercise side. I'm guessing that you believe that the more training and the more exercises, the more prepared, because that would be a reasonable conclusion, and I'm sure your experience backs that up. But tell me about some of the precepts of exercise planning to make the exercise not just a use of time, but actually an enhancement of skill.
Well, and this is the thing. The trick about exercises, I was just doing a little video for my students today because it's all online training. So I do a video every week. I do a video for them every week. And I talked about exercise. Now, exercises are really the visual part of the emergency planning, training and emergency exercise plan. It's the top of the iceberg you can see. All the other stuff that goes into an exercise is the training, taking ICS, taking how to use the radio system, how to use the notification system. Look at the notifications in Maui. They didn't get them because there was some confusion. There was the tornado in Oklahoma City or somewhere. The emergency managers didn't issue an alert for the tornado last year. So
St. Louis.
The trick about exercises is it's there to expose the gaps. It shows that Paul doesn't know how to operate the notification system. He needs the training, or his phone isn't compatible with the system. Everything's on systems now. We all look at how much we've learned since 2019, since COVID, 2020, about how to do Zoom meetings. We've all learned how to do that, right? So exercise.
I don't know. I still half the time I go on unmute. I'm muted and I forgot.
Yeah, but it's so amazing. It's so different. Like you said when we started the interview today, it's like, well, we would have just sent letters, but now we're doing it live online. And then you can rebroadcast it. But so exercises expose the gaps in training and systems. The exercises need to be tough enough to expose the gaps. Otherwise, you build too much confidence in the system, and then you don't stress yourself. So the precept is do an exercise that's going to be challenging, and use all your systems, whatever they are, whatever system you have. In Fort Saskatchewan, where I was a deputy fire chief, one of the few communities in Canada that still has the outdoor warning sirens. because it's a big industrial town. It's kind of like the Gulf Coast of Texas, lots of refineries and plastic plants and stuff. So the community still has outdoor warning sirens. And we would test them twice a year. And I was going, we should test them monthly, because half my guys didn't know how to operate them. We need more tests. And then people are going, oh, no, that's excessive. We shouldn't have that going on. It's like, yeah, but people don't, if they hear it all the time, they're going to know what to do. We can advertise it. The guys know how to operate it, and it's not a surprise. Whereas you do it twice a year, people go, oh, yeah, what's that? Oh, and they didn't see it on Facebook. They don't know, right? So we have to exercise this stuff, and you build the awareness amongst the people that something could go wrong, and you need to be able to react to it. I mentioned we were I think I was in Santa Barbara during the wildfire in 2008. My wife and I were down there on vacation. Because I'm the emergency management guy, when we get to the town, when we're traveling, I usually fill the car up the night before. And then we go find our hotel and have supper and whatever like that. Well, I had done that night, fortunately, because the hotel asked us to leave to go to another town. We went to Petaluma, I think it was. It was wonderful. We loved it. Not Petaluma. No, Sovlang, California. It's like a Norwegian town.
Oh, wow.
We went to Sovlang, but we had a full tank of gas because right away everybody's going to get gas, right? So we need to be more prepared. In the wintertime here in Canada, most people, we have our vehicles full of gas, or never below 3/4 or half. Like a fire truck, never below half. Because you never know. Could be a blizzard.
Right. And that could happen in the middle of summer.
Well, it does happen once in a while here, yes.
It does. Right. I mean, just the way, the terrible fires are happening in the winter, like the Marshall Fire on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
And Palisades, the first week of January.
Yeah, I had one of my worst wildfires here in Lacombe, where I was on the fire department for 20 years, part-time on call, in November. And we had a heat wave. It was warm. This was way back in like 2004 or something, or 2002. But we had a really mild, warm spell in November, and a train started it on fire, actually a hot bearing on a train. And we had this massive wildfire that we had 3 or 4 or 5 departments fighting for, 12 or 14 hours in November. You never know.
Right.
In fact, the likelihood of higher risk is going to be when you have an anomaly in the temperature, in the weather, or an anomaly in anything else, right?
Yeah. So do you feel that people have expectations of when there will be danger and when there won't, and that leads to complacency?
Yeah, maybe. Probably, most likely. Yeah, and I try to that's why we do that emergency traffic podcast, is to try to educate people that, hey, this could happen. Who would have thought that an intermodal container on a truck with a tractor burning would blow up, right?
Right.
Unless you've heard about it before. Now, I had heard about it before because of the one in Enderby, BC back in 2013. And so I was on the Fire Department Safety Officers Association. They did a webinar or a web meeting a few months ago, and I mentioned this podcast we're doing just to review line of duty death reports or significant events in the fire service. And they said that's great because it's another way to reach out to the practitioners, the people that are interested, of these problems, these risks, right? Look at the Deutsche Bank fire. Okay, yesterday was the anniversary of 9/11. The Deutsche Bank, I think that was Building 7. I'm sorry for the dogs.
That's right.
So the Deutsche Bank building was torn down years after. Asbestos abatement. They were taking the building down from the top, slowly demolishing it. Fire plans hadn't been reviewed for some reason. It missed the fire marshals, didn't get everything all done in the right order, stuff like that. Access was restricted. There was false walls and plywood and tarping and ventilation fans. The elevators didn't work. The standpipes didn't work. They couldn't pump water up to the building. It caught fire, and 2 or 3 firefighters passed away in that fire. It doesn't make sense, but because we were complacent with the procedures, the code, NFPA is fighting a huge battle right now, trying to get legislators to maintain code. Codes are there because someone died. That's why they're written. That's why they're there. We have legislation because of that. But like we're getting the 6-story, only one elevator fight. That's
Right.
Right. Washington State, Oregon, BC,
California.
BC, same thing. We can save some space and have more housing if we don't put 2 stairways in a 6-story building. Well, hang on a minute. But Britain does it. Yeah, and Britain's had fatalities. And Britain, it's all in big cities. Well, it's okay if you're going to do that in Seattle, where you've got 17 rigs coming to the first call. But if you do that pick a little town that's got 3 rigs coming.
Santa Monica.
Yeah, they can't deal with it because they don't have the staffing.
I was talking with the fire chief in Santa Monica, and he was telling me about this exact proposal.
Right.
That 6 stories and under, only a single source of egress.
Right. And NFPA and the code guys are saying, no, hang on. And it's not that the people might be in more danger. They might be. But the firefighters can't get in the building to fight the fire if there's only one stairway and the people are coming out. How do they go up into as soon as they open the door on the fire floor, it's pressurized with smoke, and they got to get up there to fight the fire. And they have no extra exit. So in the UK, the firefighters carry with them, and they also pre-station in many buildings smoke hoods. So it's a hood that the civilian would put on to don to get out of the smoke area. And it's got a little bit of filter air. It doesn't have compressed air on it or something like that. It just protects them from the atmosphere for a little bit while they're escaping. We don't have those here. So you have to have a clean stairway to make a safe exit, or else you may not make it out.
Oh, a lot of people think that the stairway is just extra storage.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get me started. I'm rambling about all kinds of subjects, but you're right. Big problem, New York City. I remember reading this in the Code magazine, NFPA Journal years ago. People in big cities storing their garbage in the hallway, and then having a service come to take it out every week because they can't make it down the stairs. They're in a low rent apartment building. A lot of our high risk seniors and handicapped people that can't move, they're living on assistance, and they would put their garbage in the hallway and have someone come and take it out for them once a week. Maybe the neighbor, maybe someone in the building, whatever. The problem is that garbage is in the hallway. The hallway is the path of egress. You can't have combustibles in the egress path because something could ignite. You could have a lithium-ion battery that was disposed of in the garbage that could ignite, or you could have somebody, that wants to do something wrong, and like the kids are playing with matches, whatever, and then you can't get out.
Or you trip over it during an evacuation.
Yeah. Look at the lithium-ion battery thing. That where do you store your scooter when you live in an apartment, or your e-bike? Well, you store it in the doorway. Guess what? You can't get out.
Right. Yeah, that's right. You walk in the door and you put it right there on the left side of the hallway, and
that's where I kept the bicycle when I was in an apartment, was in the hallway, but it wasn't electric.
Right. You were the power.
Yeah. But the lithium-ion batteries are wonderful, and we've got them everywhere. But at the same time, there's a bunch of energy stored in those. And, if you're not using the original battery with the original charger and all that kind of stuff, or it's been damaged because it got driven over by a car once.
Yeah. So lithium-ion batteries are a whole new source of combustion that's so prevalent now.
And danger to the firefighters and the civilians because they're off-gassing hydrofluoric gas or something like that. Anyway, it's a respiratory problem, a toxic that we have to deal with, and a potential explosion source.
Right. And then once you douse it with water, all that water is then contaminated.
Right.
And then who deals with that?
Look at the parking garage conflagrations that we've had over the past 10 years, right? Where in the cars, it doesn't matter whether it's internal combustion or lithium-ion electric, the cars are much higher heat release rate today. They have a lot more compact composite materials that will burn, and they're parked close to each other. And so whichever one starts a fire, the next one starts, the next one's fire, and then the fire department isn't prepared to deal with them.
What do you see as a solution for that?
I don't know, sprinklers in the parking garage, maybe. I don't know. Years ago, when I started in the industry in the 80s, most fire departments had a parking garage truck. They had a low height truck with water and a pump and stuff to go to parking garage fires. Nobody's got them anymore. They're relying on the standpipe and dragging the hose up the stairs. Is that maybe wrong? Have we become dulled to the risk? 2 firefighters killed in Spain, or 1 or 2, 3 months ago in a parking garage fire when a lithium or an electric car had a minor accident in the parking garage, damaged the battery, caught fire, it exploded, killed the firefighter. But we used to always have parking garage trucks. Now we don't. Maybe we missed the boat there. I don't know. Will the truck make the difference? I don't know. Robots. That's where it's going to be. Robots.
Tell me your thoughts on robots, on robotic hotshots.
First of all, my one podcast partner, Dirk, would say it's not a robot because it doesn't think. It's just a remote controlled monitor firefighting appliance. So it's not.
Unless it does think.
Well, it doesn't, but it might come.
Yeah. I mean, to the degree that robots,
right,
have neural processing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video on the Rosenbauer one. It could even open and close valves. I was doing industrial fire training yesterday, and the guys were going in with the lines, step, 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 capture the valve with the fog pattern, go in there and turn the valve off. And the Rosenbauer robot will go in there, spray water, and has a little remote hand that can manipulate a valve. So I think it's going to come. The price and the operation technology is prohibitive, but we'll probably see it regionally and or industry. I think, hey, if it can save the risk of the firefighters going into that potentially collapsing strip mall that's on fire with no victims in there, why not, right? It's going to come, just like drones. Like I think the tethered drone for the fire chief, that's an awesome idea. Press a button, it flies out of the roof of the van, and the fire chief gets an advantage point. Why not use that technology?
Yeah, the tethered drone makes a lot of sense.
I think so, yeah.
And you don't have to put a battery in it.
Right.
So
battery.
If it does crash, you lose some propellers.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think there's a place for it, and it's going to come. I haven't played with one of these remotely operated devices yet, but I think that's going to come, and we're going to have to. We can't get the manpower anyway.
Right. There's the idea that it's coming for your job makes no sense when half the jobs are vacant anyway.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing too is, and my other podcast partner, he's a fire chief and a retired engineer, design in everything because of the desire to minimize the cost, minimize the excess and stuff like that. Our designs on everything are becoming much more marginal, right? So I'm thinking specifically of the building fire in Plainfield, Indiana, where the warehouse Walmart distribution center caught fire, and the sprinkler system had extinguished the fire, they thought, and they shut down the sprinkler system, although they couldn't find the valves, so they shut the pump off instead. The fire reignited, and then they tried to get it going again, and it was already too late. And so we did a podcast about that. The National Fallen Firefighters Association put out a report on this, written by a friend of mine, J. Gordon Routley, who's an icon in the fire service. That's somebody you need to interview, by the way. He is a genius. He was on this report. He joined us on a podcast to talk about. And the fact is that the sprinkler system, yes, it will control it, but the margin of error of overcompensation for the sprinkler system to the contents is very narrow. And you have a very narrow window to be able to extinguish the fire with the sprinkler system. And if you miss that window, it is so big, it's gone. You can't do anything about it. And I mean, they had Plainfield, they had all the King's horses and all the King's men there, and they couldn't do anything about that fire because it was just so massive. I mean, the warehouse was, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head now. I mean, the sprinkler system was like 6,000 gallons a minute just to keep it going. And they couldn't stop it. Then, circle forward to a couple of days ago. I remember that roll-on, roll-off ship that tipped over in Georgia or somewhere off Atlanta, I think, a couple of years ago, all the cars in it. And the final report just came out again, and it said those ferries have ballast tanks so that when they're loading, they can keep the ship level because they're so tall and narrow, they tip over. They would tip over if they didn't have ballast tanks. And apparently the problem with that ship was they were having trouble with their ballast tank system. And they did a really quick turn and the ballast tank system wasn't working properly, and the ferry tipped over on its side. Again, the engineering margins for the ship to be stable are so narrow and tight. We depend on systems to keep it safe. If the systems didn't work, bang, look at the ferry into the bridge in Baltimore.
Right.
Right? What was it? Electrical failure.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
By the way, because I teach incident command, and this is a really good nugget. Baltimore City Fire, they had lost 3 or 4 firefighters in a fire in 2022, 21, in a vacant townhouse. And it was, and if you read the report from Baltimore, it was what to do, what not to do incident command system. I mean, they did everything wrong incident command system wise. And the fire chief, or the chief, well, he quit the day the report came out. The chief officer at the scene admitted I was oversaturated. At one point, he had 27 direct reports or something, and he couldn't keep track of it. And so, but they had already started training on ICS by the time the report came out. Fast forward to 2 years ago when the ship hit the bridge, I listened to the audio of the incident commander for that call, and it was textbook ICS. So they learned. The lesson was identified when they lost the 3 firefighters.
Right.
And they've trained and they've repaired it because their incident commanders were doing a great job of incident command. So it can happen, right?
Yeah.
That's how my mind works.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
It's
like, wow.
So here we take, ICS 100, 200, 400, 800, whatever. Is ICS the same everywhere?
Yes, pretty well. Canada uses sort of a simple version. We don't have it doesn't have as much depth as ICS in the States. But yes, that's the whole idea of ICS, is that it is universal, so that I can come to your incident and I understand what you're talking about, and you can plug me into any position, which is the beauty of ICS. Unfortunately, it's still being adopted. It's not everywhere in Canada, but it's coming rapidly. But the beauty of it is that it was really cool, because I teach ICS when Baltimore, the first report came out, I sent it to all my ICS instructor friends, and I said, here's what not to do ICS-wise, because it listed all the stuff that the incident commander didn't do. They didn't follow the ICS system. And then when they had the ship hit the bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge, they did such a great job. And so it was great to see the learning curve in there. But yeah, ICS is the way to go. It's the best practice that we know of in North America anyway. For managing anything. What is ICS? It's an operating system. It's like my Android phone or your Apple phone. It's just an operating system that we learn to operate to manage an emergency.
But I think there's basically just one major difference between the U.S. one and the Canadian one. And in the U.S. one, if there's a Mayday situation, it's hey, we need some help. And in Canada, it's we need some help, eh?
Exactly. Very good. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look at the incident management teams that America has been using for years in many applications. Alberta here, only in 2018, established incident management teams that weren't just for wildfire, that were for all hazards emergencies, and they're funding them. I'm a member of one of them, and there's 5 here in the province of Alberta. Why did they do that? Because they saw that in California and Colorado and Oregon and Utah and wherever else, these incident management teams, like the Waldo Canyon report by NISC did, the incident management team availability made a difference in the outcome of the emergency. So Alberta's funding them now too, but there's not many more in Canada. But it's something we're learning slowly.
Well, I guess that's the best we can hope for.
That's right.
Giving humans. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
I hope I didn't ramble on too much. I probably did, but okay.
You rambled just the right amount.
That's me.
And I appreciate it so much. We've been chatting with Paul Prevost. You've been listening to The Fire Break. Thank you so much for listening, for joining us. Paul, thanks for sharing so much of your wisdom and identifying this crucial aspect of identifying the learning and then doing the learning. Key to progress. For The Fire Break, I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Until next time, be well, take care, and maybe practice some evacuations.